Season tickets are on sale for the 2025-2026 in-print Margaret Root Brown reading series, which offers one-of-a-kind opportunities to see the world's most fascinating authors, including the brilliant Salman Rushdie and Life of Pi author Jan Martel, across 10 nights in the Houston Theater District. Subscriptions include the best seats in the house, free parking, signed books, and other perks. For more information and to buy season tickets, visit inprint.org. That's inprint.org. Y'all, Main Street is popping right now in downtown Houston. The stage is getting set for the World Cup, and there are big, bold improvements being made, especially on Main Street. The sidewalks are getting more shade and more space and more of what you love. So during this time, let's go support our Houston-owned small businesses on Main Street. From morning coffee runs and happy hour hangouts to late night vibes, these local gems are powering through construction to keep the city buzzing. So grab your crew and meet me on Main Street because an exciting transformation is underway and we are rallying to support our downtown businesses. Today on CityCast Houston, we're breaking down the biggest stories of the week and stories you might have missed with the Houston Chronicle's Evan Mintz and Maggie Gordon of Straight Arrow News. It's Friday, September 5th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Evan, Maggie, this story has been all over the news nationwide, and this is the tragic shooting of Julian Guzman. I'm going to be upfront with everyone. This one is very hard to talk about, and if you haven't followed the news yet, this is the 11-year-old boy who was shot in the back as he was running away while playing Ding Dong Ditch with his cousin on Saturday night in East Houston, and he was shot by 42-year-old Gonzalo Leon Jr. That man has been charged with murder, by the way. We are still getting new reports about what exactly happened. The charge could be upgraded to a more serious offense as well. There's a lot to unpack here. So let's start with this, Evan. What do you think this means for kids' safety in Texas?
You know, I think this story really captures two key narratives about life in America, life in Texas, life in Houston today. One of them is about gun culture. You know, there's this sense that if you kind of look back in our past, that gun owners were very focused on responsibility, on maturity, duty, safety, self-protection. But since then, it feels like something has changed, that it's about fear, it's about violence, it's about power, and it's about people marinating in the sense, whether it's driven by politicians, whether it's driven by social media, that you're constantly on edge, need to have your finger on the trigger at all times, and that problems can be solved with your gun. And you almost see folks relishing in the opportunity, just can't wait for something bad to happen so they can use their gun. And that's what it looked like happened here. You know, you had two kids who left a family party to go play a prank on a neighbor. And this is the other narrative, that kids should be allowed to be kids. And in an age of social media, when we're worried about childhood anxiety, when we're worried that kids aren't going out and playing with their friends and don't really know what to do, we are denying them opportunities to do that. That it's unexpected for kids to play ding dong ditch. It's viewed as a criminal behavior. At a certain point, we've got to accept that kids should be allowed to be kids and create some space for that. Mm-hmm. And there's just nowhere for that to happen these days.
I read Leah's editorial in the Chronicle, and it really hit home with me. I have 3 young kids. They're not of ding dong ditch age yet, but they are Houston natives. And, you know, I want them to enjoy a city where they can be kids. And one of the things that this really made me think about, which Leah talked about in her editorial, and Evan, you just hit on as well, is we do not create spaces for children to have childhoods. You know, I was looking through the fiscal year budget for the city of Houston for 2026, and our city allocated $50 million to libraries, $88 million to parks. At the same time, we had $1.1 billion for the police department. So for every $1 we spent on our city libraries, we spent $22.22 on police. Mm-hmm. For every $1 we spent on parks, we spent $12.65 on police. That's just police. We'll spend another $659 million on the fire department, about $13.18 for every dollar on the libraries. You know, my kid would love to go to a firehouse. My kid loves seeing a police car go down the street. But a library is a place that I take my children to be kids, right? A park is a place I take my children to be kids.
Yeah.
Where's the prioritization on that?
I will say, as a parent of a 10-year-old who is in this age group, I encourage her to go play outside with her friends and I tell her to go have fun, right? So, whatever that may be. And I did read Leah Binkovitz's column in the Houston Chronicle, which I'm also linking in our show notes. And I will say that I don't feel like my kid is less safe being a kid in the streets in Texas right now. To me, this story speaks more of a guy who was demented. This is sick behavior. He was waiting for these kids. And as you mentioned, Evan, there is this culture shift of guns going from protecting you to now, like, I just want to use them, right? So as a parent, I don't feel like my kid is less safe. I think this is a one-off in that this was a person who, this is my personal opinion, was demented. This was sick. This was absolute horrific behavior. He was waiting for these kids because they had come to his house before in a 30-minute span. And I don't know. I don't feel like my kid is less safe. Like, I want her to go out in the neighborhood. And maybe it's the optimistic person in me that I feel like people are still looking out for kids and people are going to exhibit behavior that will protect kids. And this is just a one-off.
I mean, I wish I could say that he was demented and this was a one-off, but he was a full-grown man, 42 years old, Army veteran. He owned more than 20 weapons. And that seems to be a common practice among a lot of gun owners, that a small number of people own a whole lot of guns out there. And I'm reminded of the story from 2022 when a guy was being mugged at an ATM, tried to shoot the guy robbing him, ended up shooting a 9-year-old girl just nearby. And there are folks out there have their guns who think they're going to use it to protect themselves. They're going to use it to be hero, to get the bad guys, whether it's protecting your family or just protecting your home from somebody who's knocking on your door. But the reality is that you look at the statistics and you know that if you own a gun, you're more likely to use it to hurt someone in your house, to hurt yourself, to hurt someone accidentally. That's just reality. This isn't an action movie. The world isn't Marvel. The world isn't DC. I'm sick and tired of folks just having these fantasies where they're going to be this hero. That's not how the real world works.
I think I admire your optimism in thinking this is a one-off, but I mean, if I had a dime for every conversation I had, that could have been a one-off conversation, right?
And I'm saying it more as kids just in the neighborhood playing and being kids. Let kids be kids. I played Ding Dong Ditch when I was young, and I still feel like my daughter is safe when she's out there being a kid. And I just want to point out something else. I don't know if y'all saw this story or not, but last July, a man shot at 2 boys who were in their own front yard burying their guinea pig. And this man just came out of nowhere and just shot them. This was in July. We didn't learn about it until late August. So I'm also glad that we're learning about stories like this one, but it also points to the fact that, are we missing other stories where neighbors are attacking each other? Because this one took forever to get to the mainstream media, and it was because Fiel and Cesar Espinoza, they picked up that case and started talking about it. But yeah, that was another thing that stood out to me, and I'm glad we learned about this story when we did.
I think that's a really good point, and it gets to this core issue of a gun culture that sort of relishes in the opportunity for violence rather than supporting an attitude of responsible gun ownership. And that's something that I don't think the government can regulate well. It doesn't have the authority. We don't want it to have that kind of authority to get into people's personal lives unless we're doing some sort of across-the-board limits on gun ownership. And I don't think that's likely in Texas. So it falls on civil society. It falls on gun owners, the NRA, politicians who have that mic and have the bully pulpit to say, if you own a gun, you have to demonstrate a real responsibility around it. You have to demonstrate a real maturity about it. This isn't a toy. This isn't a thing that you ever want to use outside of, say, hunting and sports shooting. And the idea that people just can't wait to use it to get the bad guys, well, in all honesty, there's not a whole lot of bad guys out there in the world unless you're looking for them. And so if you don't have them, you're going to come up with any opportunity to make someone in your mind that bad guy, even if it's kids in their front yard.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that story about the kids burying their pet. And I think there's a world in which we wouldn't have heard about this story unless it really rose to the level where it's like, people are like, I play Ding Dong Ditch. I have a kid who plays Ding Dong Ditch. It has this universality to it right? And so we are called to discuss it because we feel as though it happened in a world that we live in. But I have to tell you, a lot of times I'm someone who works in news and I feel desensitized to the headlines about violent crimes. The first time that this story blew into my sphere was, I saw on Twitter, Matt Lanza from Space City Weather said something about, we want kids to be kids until, and I was like, I need to read this. What is this? And that was the frame of mind I went into when I saw a headline about, a gun violence story and realized, oh my God, this is heartbreaking. It's devastating. But how many of those stories do we not allow our hearts to be broken by? Do we not allow ourselves to be devastated by? Because it's one of 13 headlines from HPD today about a violent crime.
That's so true. We're getting to the point in our culture where we are desensitized to stories like this. And my heart goes out to Julian Guzman's family and his friends. And I saw the memorial that his friends created, just thinking about the memories that they made with this young man. And now he's gone because of playing Ding Dong Ditch, something that we should be able to do without consequence, right? Call the cops if you feel like your safety is jeopardized. As a 42-year-old man to go after, even if this was, let's say, criminals, they're running away from you. And that's what you decide to do, is shoot at them when the threat has been taken away. I still can't comprehend this. It's mind-blowing. It's a tragic loss of life. And I hope we get better as a society.
I keep waiting to see the folks who call for gun rights, make that their main issue, come out and say, this is not what we mean. People should not be acting like this. But honestly, a lot of the rhetoric I've seen is more to condemn the kids, to say, well, what were they doing out late at night anyways? Where were their parents? They should have known that something bad was going to happen. And I think it is ridiculous to put the burden on 11-year-olds to not get shot in the back by a grown man. Where is this sense of manliness? Where's the sense of masculinity that I hear from so many politicians, from so many pundits and influencers today about what it means to be strong and a man and not feminine? Does it mean shooting little kids while they're running away from you? Does it mean surrounding yourself with 20 weapons because you live, in Houston? Is a war going to break out? Are aliens invading? Like, what is it? What is it that you're trying to protect yourself from? Who is it you're trying to kill? Because if you keep preparing for that moment when you get to pull the trigger, well, then it might be for an 11-year-old.
Evan perfectly said. When we get back, I want to go around and talk about headlines that we might have missed. We'll do that next. This show is brought to you by Wise, the app for international people using money around the globe. With Wise, you can send, spend, and receive up to 40 currencies with only a few simple taps and save up to 55% compared to major banks. Plus, Wise won't add hidden fees to your transfer. Whether you're buying souvenirs with pesos in Puerto Vallarta or sending euros to tip your Coliseum tour guide, you're getting a fair exchange rate with no extra markups. That's what makes Wise the fast, affordable way to use your money around the globe. Wise also offers 24/7 live support, and they run over 7 million daily checks to catch and prevent fraud. So your money is where it's supposed to be. Be smart. Join the 15 million customers who choose Wise. Download the Wise app today or visit wise.com. Terms and conditions apply. Ready to have some fun this summer? Well, downtown Houston is where you need to head because they're jam-packed with cool events every day. I love a good workout, and downtown Houston has so many free fitness classes. Plus, they have brand new dance classes at Market Square Park featuring merengue, bachata, and salsa. Just want to relax? How about some live music or their awesome movies under the stars? And you can't forget about their summer trivia nights at Trebley Park. There's something for everyone. So grab the kids, the dog, your date, or just yourself and enjoy your summer in Houston's original neighborhood. Here's one last tip. Blanket Bingo is back this month, but act fast because tickets do sell out. Find the full list of events at downtownhouston.org or text downtown to 56512 for all the fun at your fingertips. Downtown Houston. Get energized and revived. All right, y'all, there are a lot of stories that we still want to talk about. So let's get to it. Maggie, you got the first one. Lightning round.
Yeah, there was a Senate hearing on Wednesday talking about the future of NASA, which we all know. I mean, we live in Space City. We know that there's been a lot going on at NASA. There's been a huge number of job cuts. They're talking about really slashing the budget on the science side, on the exploration side. And in the hearing, there was something that Jim Bridenstine, who was the previous administrator, said, quote, "It's highly unlikely we'll get to the moon before China." And that really struck me because we are America. We get to the moon first. That is what we do, you know? And we were supposed to have boots on the moon in 2024. If y'all remember, that was the plan. And now it's pushed back to 2027. We're going to have sort of a cislunar exploration in 2026. But, you know, China is getting there faster. And it looks like pretty much that is essentially a foregone conclusion, given where we are in the schedule right now. And I just think people all over Houston should be talking about this. You know, this is where your neighbors and your uncles and your aunts work there. And it's also just such a point of national and civic pride. And so I think we should really have our eyes on what's going on at NASA, what do the cuts look like, and what are the consequences of all that going to be. And if China gets there first, that's the beginning of a whole other set of consequences, right? And so it feels to me like a huge story that we should all have our eyes on.
Yeah, I mean, the future of space exploration is at stake right now, it feels like.
Yeah. You know, the last time we went to the moon, it was very expensive. We dedicated a significant percentage of GDP of the federal budget to do it. And since then, we've kind of been doing it on the cheap. And we haven't been doing it in an efficient or effective way. Priorities have changed from administration to administration. Are we going to the moon? Are we skipping the moon and going to Mars? And you wait for these Sputnik moments where you see that we are falling behind, and it kind of calls the nation to action and focuses on the task at hand. And one of the things I worry about is that we've seen a bunch of small Sputnik moments happening, and it hasn't inspired us to do better. You know, China is owning manufacturing of solar panels, you know, something that we created. It is owning the manufacturing of batteries, something we created. It is owning the next generation of electric vehicles and selling those across the world. And instead, we get pushback. So much of biomedical research is happening there because of cuts to funding here, because of undermining the entire idea, say, of germ theory by RFK Jr. up in Washington, D.C. You know, we are moving backwards, and rather than being called to action by the moment, we're instead running away from it. And I worry that if China beats us to the moon, rather than us saying, well, we've got to get our stuff together and beat them to Mars, you're going to have instead a wave of people say, well, the government can't do it. They can't do anything right. Maybe the moon landing was faked, and we should just wait for the private sector to do it. And, you know, it calls on our politicians to lead in this moment and create some sort of sense of inspiration for people. And I'm just not getting that from anyone.
Yeah, and that's why these federal cuts, what happens today is going to impact the future, and we'll see how far it potentially sets back the United States. And, you know, just the race to the moon is one example, and all the examples that you laid out as well, Evan. We'll be watching this. Okay, second story, the THC ban that was so important for the Republicans on the state level. It looks like it's not going to happen because the Republican leadership could not come to an agreement in the second special session. Evan, what does this mean for the future of the Republican Party here in Texas?
I mean, it is fascinating. Dan Patrick went to the mat over this and lost. And it's really hard to think of moments when Dan Patrick lost on something he really cared about. And typically when it's happened in the past, it's because there was a speaker in the House who was elected with Democratic votes who really tried to moderate influences. We saw that a lot with Joe Strauss and transgender issues. We've seen it with vouchers. But this session, all those conservative policies finally passed through. You had a conservative speaker. But this one thing failed. And I think it shows that there really is this schism in the party between traditional Republicans like Dan Patrick and this MAGA youth who want their legal weed, who really like it. They will point to, say, Donald Trump's agriculture bill allowing legal hemp, opening the door to sort of state level marijuana. And folks who enjoy this kind of thing, they associate it with providing treatment for veterans, providing treatment for PTSD, an alternative to opioids. And they view Dan Patrick as out of touch. So we're going to see how much of a wedge this drives within the party. And whether Democrats can take advantage of it and see themselves moderate on some other issues, but go all in on legal weed to try to peel off some of these voters.
It was actually wild to see that the Republican leadership listened to the people instead of telling the people what they should be doing and how they should be living their lives. So that was eye-opening as well.
It is. Of course, I will point out that, it's not a thing that just affects, say, pregnant women or minorities or vulnerable populations. It is about white men who want their weed. And the hope is that maybe this can open some eyes to a sense of where the government should and shouldn't be interfering in people's lives.
I also wonder if this could be an opportunity to talk about, beginning to have a generational shift in our Texas coalition. It's something that I think about a lot of the time. If you look at here in Houston, both our mayoral candidates, for this current administration were more than double the age of the average Houstonian, right? May they rest in peace. Sylvester Turner and Sheila Jackson Lee, they both passed away. They were older people, much older than our city as an average, right? In term, which has had huge effects on representation nationally.
Yeah.
Like Evan, you said, this is something that I'm sure it's not fully driven by youth. I know a lot of boomers who like weed, right?
Right.
But this also, I think, could indicate, like you were saying, some people starting to feel as though those who are in power are getting a bit out of touch with the average Texan who is on average in their 30s. This is a young state. And so I'm so curious to see if this could be one of those moments where in 10 years we look back and say, this was one of the things that got younger adults a little bit more motivated.
I hope so, and we'll see whether the Democrats try to run on this or not. It's up to them to try to turn this into an issue. And I think you've seen Democrats often fail to seize on the issues that drive a wedge within the Republican Party and instead find themselves fighting on territory that Republicans have picked for them. So it's going to be up to, say, Beto O'Rourke. It's going to be up to Colin Allred to figure out how they can run on this.
Okay, our next story, Houston-based ConocoPhillips says it is going to lay off up to 25% of its workforce. That means it could impact over 3,200 people. Now, this is not all Houston jobs. This is going to impact the global workforce. Is this a sign of things to come here in Houston, though, Evan?
Oh, I'm very worried. If you read the responses in the Dallas Fed survey, you can see that oil and gas business owners have switched from being cautious about tariffs to panicking about them. The price of all their inputs on steel, on aluminum is going up. And it's not just about cost. It is about inconsistency. It is about an inability to plan because of the constant changes being made to trade policy. At the same time, we're losing workforce due to immigration policy, and that slows down economic growth. So the economy is slowing. Costs are going up. We have a word for that. It's stagflation.
Oh, that's not good. That is not good at all. Okay, final story in lightning round. Maggie, I want to start with you. I don't know if you saw this one or not, but Lizzo, who is one of the most popular artists in the world, she did a Kolache TikTok review featuring some Houston standouts, Shipley Donuts, Kolache Factory, and Christie's. And the winner was Shipley's Donuts. I'm going to say Shipley's. It's okay. I know I'm going against my own rule, but she rated the Kolache from Shipley's as 10 out of 10. Who has the best Kolache? Okay,
I can't argue with Lizzo because she is from Houston. I've only been here 10 years, but Christie's.
Okay.
Done.
She rated Christie's 7.5 out of 10. Evan?
No, I'm at Shipley almost every Saturday with my kid who wants his donuts. I get my sausage jalapeno cheese Kolache. It's fine. It's okay. It's like the Whataburger of Kolache, where this is kind of a base level. If you can't do better than this, get out of the game. But Christie is the best. Obviously, top Kolache in the city.
I'm going to put up for Kolache Factory. Every time I go there, I always get a fantastic Kolache. It is good. I think any Kolache is a good Kolache, but yeah, Christie's coming in third place on that list, 7.5 out of 10.
Break
Shipley got 10 out of 10, and then Kolache Factory 8.9 out of 10 on the Lizzo TikTok review scale. So I wasn't ready for that, but here we are. Shout out to Lizzo for putting on for the city and giving us some love on TikTok. All right, when we get back, we end the week on a high note, our moments of joy. All right, moment of joy. What made you happy this week? Let's head into the weekend on a high note. Maggie, you kick it off.
Yeah, my moment of joy is a very personal one for me. After 4.5 years of being either pregnant or pumping, I retired my pumps this week, but it feels like I'm giving up a limb, and it also feels like I'm giving up something very valuable. And so I have been scrambling, trying to find some place I can donate pumping materials to here in Houston. A lot of places don't take them because of germ issues and stuff like that. But there's got to be some sort of shelter or something that needs anything. So if anybody knows people who need something, please reach out to me. I guess my work email, mgordon@san.com. I think this could help someone somewhere.
Maggie, my wife had the same issue after she was done with the pumping phase of her life, which again, shout out to the moms out there. I don't think people who don't have a mom in their life who's pumping understand how hard and how intrusive it is, how exhausting it is, because you're doing this pretty much around the clock. But when we were looking for a place to donate the equipment, a lot of places do not take them. So we just put a call out on Facebook groups and neighborhood groups to see if there's a mom that somebody could point us to who needs it. And we found a mom that needed the pump. So we gave it to her, of course, after sanitizing it thoroughly. But yeah, it's hard to donate on a organizational level. You're just going to have to find it on a mom level. And congratulations to you for leaving that part of your life. I know you are very happy and you're going to get a lot of time back. Evan, how about you? What was your moment of joy?
Well, my moment of joy is spending this whole week talking with my family about the Japan Festival coming up this weekend. My wife and I went on a wonderful trip to Japan earlier this summer. We flew that Zip Air, right out of Bush Airport. And so the whole time our kids have been like, when do we get to go to Japan? When do we get to go to Japan? And the answer is, well, how about the Japan Festival? So the whole family is very excited about that. Love being able to do outdoor things when it's starting to cool off, maybe a little bit, head to all the various fall festivals that are coming up in the next few months. And I feel like this is the one that really kicks it off.
Evan, where's the Japan Festival going to be?
The Japan Festival is at Herman Park. It's on Saturday and Sunday. There's a tea ceremony. It's already sold out. You can sign up for, so too late on that. But there's food, there's stands, there's toys you can buy, products. The last time I was there, they had a contest where you could win a trip to Japan run by a Japanese game show.
Oh, wow.
So just all sorts of fun stuff out there.
Man, that sounds fantastic. That's going to be going down in the city. And if you want to get some other events first and before anybody else, you need to become a CityCast Houston neighbor. For just $10 a month, you get the first peek at events for the week in Hey Houston, which is our daily newsletter. And this is a membership perk. We also have other perks there as well, but I know so many people love that perk when that email comes in with the events. You get the first look. And again, becoming a CityCast Houston neighbor, that is one of your exclusive perks for just $10 a month or $100 a year. Please sign up right now at membership.citycast.fm. And this also helps us to continue making the great shows and newsletter that you've come to love. So please help us and make CityCast Houston the best possible show, and Hey Houston the best possible daily newsletter that helps you better connect to the city of Houston. Membership.citycast.fm. Maggie, Evan, thank you so much for spending some time with me, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Chat with y'all next time.
That was Maggie Gordon. She's the senior storytelling editor at Straight Arrow News, along with Evan Mintz, editor of opinion at the Houston Chronicle. All of the stories we talked about are linked in our show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening this week. And before the weekend, please do me a favor, text this episode right now to 3 of your friends who live inside the loop. Also, rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening, and subscribe to CityCast Houston if you're new here. For more daily news, happenings, history, and events, subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, at houston.citycast.fm. Thank you. That will do it for this week here on CityCast Houston. Our producers this week were Zoe Culkin and Carleon Jones. Our newsletter editors this week were Adrian Gonzalez and Brooke Lewis. Our executive producer is Laura Isensee, and I'm your host, Raheel Ramzanali. Our music is by the band All the Kimonos, with additional music courtesy of Steve Michaels and 8 Main from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. We'll be back on Monday to learn about what it's like to be in the job market right now in Houston. Thank you for listening, and have a great weekend.